Call me immediately. Do not go to that dinner. The text came through while I was buttoning my shirt, getting ready to drive to my sister's house. She had invited me for dinner to discuss the estate. Her words, delivered in that careful tone she had been using ever since our father died 3 months earlier. I stared at the message on my phone. It was from Richard Holloway, my father's attorney for over 20 years, now handling the probate of his estate. Richard was not the type to send dramatic texts. He was methodical, precise, the kind of lawyer who scheduled calls 3 days in advance and never used exclamation points. Something was very wrong. I called him immediately. "Do not go to that dinner," he said again, before I could even say hello. "I need you to come to my office first. There is something you need to see." "What is going on?" "I am supposed to be at Jennifer's in 45 minutes. "That is exactly why you need to come here first. I found something in your father's files this afternoon. Something that changes everything." "Changes everything how?" He was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was careful, measured, the way lawyers speak when they are about to deliver devastating news. "Your sister has hired a private investigator. She is trying to prove that you are not your father's biological son. She wants to invalidate the will." The world tilted. I sat down on the edge of my bed, phone pressed to my ear, trying to process what I had just heard. That is insane. I am his son. I have been his son for 37 years. I know, but she has documents. Or at least she claims to have documents. She is preparing a legal challenge to the estate. What kind of documents? I do not know yet, but I found something else. Something in the sealed files your father left with me. Something she does not know about. He paused. "You need to see this before you see her. Trust me." I told Jennifer I would be late. I told her something had come up at work, an emergency that could not wait. She sounded disappointed but not suspicious. She had no idea what was coming. Neither did I. My name is Daniel Harrison, and this is the story of how a single phone call revealed that everything I thought I knew about my family was a lie. I should tell you about my father first. About the kind of man he was, the life he built, the legacy he left behind. Because none of this makes sense without understanding what was at stake when Jennifer decided to challenge the will. Robert Harrison was a self-made man in the truest sense of the word. He grew up poor in a small town in western Massachusetts, the son of a factory worker and a waitress who both died before he turned 20. He put himself through college working night shifts at a warehouse, graduated with an engineering degree, and started his first business with $3,000 he had saved over 5 years. That business became Harrison Manufacturing. What started as a 2-person operation in a rented garage grew into a company that employed over 200 people, manufactured precision components for the aerospace industry, and generated revenues of over $30 million a year. My father built that company over 40 years. He poured his life into it, sacrificed vacations and weekends and time with his family to make it succeed. It was his legacy, his life's work, the thing he was most proud of besides his children. And he always intended for it to pass to me. I do not say that with arrogance. It was simply the plan, discussed openly, understood by everyone in the family. I had worked at the company since I was 16, starting in the warehouse, moving up through quality control, eventually taking over as operations manager. I knew every process, every customer, every employee by name. Jennifer had worked there too, briefly in the marketing department, but she left after 3 years to pursue other interests. She said the manufacturing world was not for her, that she wanted something more creative, more dynamic. My father supported her decision, helped her start a small interior design business, gave her seed money and referrals. He was generous with both of us. But the company was always meant to be mine. When he died 3 months ago, the will confirmed what everyone already knew. I received the business, the family home, and the bulk of his investment accounts. Jennifer received $200,000 in cash, plus some personal items with sentimental value. It was not an even split, but it was fair given the circumstances. Jennifer had her own career, her own income, her own life. The company needed someone to run it, someone who knew it from the inside, someone who could preserve the legacy my father had spent 40 years building. I thought Jennifer understood that. I thought she had accepted it the same way I had accepted that she would always be the favorite at family gatherings, the one who made my mother laugh, the one who remembered birthdays and organized holidays and kept the family connected. I was wrong. Richard's office was in a converted Victorian house on the main street of our small Connecticut town. He had worked there for 30 years, serving the same families, handling the same estates, watching generations grow up and grow old and eventually need his services one final time. My father had been one of his first clients. They had started together, young men building their careers, forming a friendship that lasted until my father's death from a heart attack 3 months earlier. Richard met me at the door himself, which was unusual. Normally his assistant would greet visitors and show them to the conference room. But it was after 6 on a Thursday evening, and the office was empty except for the two of us. "Thank you for coming," he said, leading me down the hallway to his private office. "I know this is disrupting your plans, but I could not let you walk into that dinner without knowing the truth." "What truth?" "You said Jennifer hired an investigator. What is she looking for?" He gestured for me to sit in the leather chair across from his desk. Then he opened a drawer and pulled out a manila folder, thick with documents, and set it on the desk between us. "Your father left me these files with specific instructions. I was to keep them sealed unless certain conditions were met." He paused. "One of those conditions was if anyone in the family challenged the legitimacy of his children." "Jennifer is challenging my legitimacy?" "She has hired an investigator named Marcus Webb. She has been working with him for 6 weeks, trying to find evidence that you are not your father's biological son. She believes that if she can prove you were adopted or illegitimate, she can invalidate the portion of the will that leaves you the business and the house." I felt sick. My sister, the person I had grown up with, shared holidays with, trusted completely, was trying to steal my inheritance by attacking my identity. "How did you find out about this?" I asked. "Marcus Webb contacted me last week. He wanted access to your father's medical records, his correspondence, anything that might prove you were not his biological son. He said he was working for a family member who had concerns about the legitimacy of the estate." "And you told him no?" "I told him that client files were confidential and that I would need written authorization from the estate executor, which happens to be you." He was not happy. He said his client had legal grounds to compel discovery. Richard paused. That is when I realized something was wrong. I did some checking, found out who had hired him, and then I went through the sealed files your father had left with me. The files you were not supposed to open unless someone challenged the will. Exactly. Your father anticipated this. He knew that someday, someone might question whether you were really his son. He wanted you to have the evidence to defend yourself. "I am not adopted," I said. "I remember my mother being pregnant with me. There are photos, hospital records." "I know, and your sister knows too. But she is not looking for the truth. She is looking for ammunition. She has been telling people that your mother had an affair, that your father was not your biological father, that the will should be invalidated because it was based on a false assumption of paternity. That is a lie. My mother never had an affair. She loved my father completely. I know that too, but lies can be effective, especially in probate court. All she needs is enough doubt to drag the process out, to force expensive DNA testing, to make the whole thing so painful and costly that you agree to a settlement." I stared at the folder on his desk. "What is in there?" Richard opened the folder and spread the documents across his desk. I saw birth certificates, medical records, legal papers covered in dense text that I could not read from where I was sitting. "Your father was a careful man," Richard said. "When your sister was born, he suspected something was wrong. Your mother had been ill during the pregnancy, had spent time in a hospital in Vermont that your father knew nothing about. When Jennifer was born, he noticed things. Small things at first, but they added up." "What kind of things?" "Blood type incompatibilities. Jennifer is type AB. Your father was type O. Your mother was type A. 2 parents with those blood types cannot produce an AB child. It is genetically impossible." I stared at him. I had taken biology in high school. I knew enough about genetics to understand what he was saying. He confronted Mom? Not immediately. He wanted to be sure before he said anything. He noticed other things too. Physical characteristics that did not match either parent. The shape of her ears, the spacing of her eyes, the way your mother became defensive whenever he asked questions about that time in Vermont. How do you know all this? Richard reached into the folder and pulled out a bound journal, the cover worn with age. Your father kept a record. He wrote down every observation, every question, every piece of evidence that made him suspicious. He knew that someday he might need to prove what he discovered. I took the journal. My father's handwriting, familiar and precise, filled page after page. Dates and observations, questions and doubts. The slow accumulation of evidence that his daughter was not his daughter. He hired his own investigator quietly without telling anyone. It took 2 years, but eventually he found the truth. Richard paused. Your sister Jennifer was not born to your mother. She was adopted, secretly, illegally, through an arrangement your mother made while she was supposedly recovering from a difficult pregnancy in Vermont. I stared at him. That is impossible. My mother carried Jennifer. I remember her being pregnant. I was 4 years old, but I remember. Your mother was pregnant. She carried a baby for 5 months. And then she had a miscarriage. A devastating miscarriage that almost killed her. She was hospitalized in Vermont for 3 months, supposedly recovering. 3 months. Long enough to find a pregnant woman who did not want her child. Long enough to arrange a private adoption. Long enough to come home with a newborn baby that everyone assumed was the child she had been carrying all along. The room felt like it was spinning. Everything I thought I knew about my family was disintegrating in front of me. My mother did that? She arranged an illegal adoption and lied about it for 30 years. The miscarriage broke something in her. That is what your father eventually concluded. She wanted a daughter so badly that she was willing to do anything to get one. She convinced herself that what she was doing was not really wrong, that she was giving a home to a baby who would otherwise have been abandoned. And my father found out? He found out when Jennifer was 7. He confronted your mother. She confessed everything. They decided to keep the secret to protect Jennifer, to never tell her that she was not their biological child. But he found out. He had proof. Richard nodded. He kept the proof in case it was ever needed. He hoped it never would be. He told me once that he loved Jennifer despite everything. That the circumstances of her birth did not matter to him. She was the child he had raised, the daughter he had watched grow up. He did not want to destroy her with the truth. Then why keep all this documentation? Because he knew Jennifer. He loved her, but he was not blind to her faults. He worried that someday she might challenge the will. He worried that her jealousy might lead her to do something reckless. Richard paused. He wanted you to have the tools to defend yourself if that day ever came. I looked at the folder spread across his desk. Birth certificate from Vermont with the biological mother's name. Medical records from the adoption. DNA test results from 2009 that your father ordered secretly, confirming that Jennifer shares no genetic material with either of your parents. Hospital records showing my mother's miscarriage at 22 weeks. Correspondence between my father and the investigator he had hired. 30 years of secrets, carefully preserved, waiting for this moment. I sat in silence, trying to absorb what I was hearing. My sister was not my sister. My mother had lied to everyone for over 30 years. My father had known and said nothing, protecting a secret that Jennifer herself apparently never discovered. She does not know, I said finally. Jennifer does not know she is adopted. Apparently not. Or if she does, she has decided to pretend otherwise. Richard shook his head. The irony is devastating. She is trying to prove that you are not your father's biological son, when in fact she is the one with no biological connection to the family. She is trying to use a lie to steal an inheritance that, by her own logic, she has no right to. What do I do with this? That is your choice. You can confront her tonight, show her the documents, watch her reaction. You can wait, let her file her challenge, and then present this evidence in court. Or you can try to resolve this privately, Use the information to negotiate a settlement that protects everyone's secrets. What would my father have wanted? Richard was quiet for a long moment. Your father loved Jennifer. Despite knowing the truth, he raised her as his own daughter for 30 years. He left her $200,000 in his will, a substantial sum. He wanted to provide for her. But he left me the business, the house, the majority of his estate. Because you are his son, his biological son, the heir he always planned to pass his legacy to. Richard paused. He told me once that he worried about Jennifer. He said she had always been jealous of you, had always felt like she was competing for his attention. He said he feared she would do something like this someday. He knew she would challenge the will? He suspected. That is why he gave me these documents. That is why he told me to keep them sealed unless someone challenged the legitimacy of his children. Richard closed the folder and pushed it across the desk toward me. He wanted you to have the truth, Daniel. Whatever you decide to do with it. I took the folder. I held it in my hands, feeling the weight of 30 years of secrets, 30 years of lies, 30 years of a family that was not what anyone thought it was. And then I drove to my sister's house for dinner. Jennifer greeted me at the door with a hug that felt different now. Knowing what I knew, I could feel the calculation in it, the performance of affection that masked something colder underneath. I am so glad you could make it, she said, leading me into the living room. I know things have been tense since Dad's passing. I thought we could talk, just the two of us, figure out how to move forward. I would like that, I said, playing along, waiting to see what she would reveal. Her husband Michael was conveniently absent, visiting his parents for the weekend. Her children were at a sleepover. We were alone in the house, which I suspected was not a coincidence. She poured wine. She made small talk. She asked about my work, my health, my plans for the future. She was warm and sisterly, the perfect host, giving no indication of the investigation she had been conducting behind my back. I let her talk. I watched her face, looking for signs of the deception I now knew was there. She was good at this, I realized. She had been practicing her whole life, performing the role of daughter and sister while hiding whatever she truly felt. After an hour of pleasantries, she finally got to the point. I wanted to talk to you about the will, she said, her voice becoming more serious. I do not think the distribution was fair. You received $200,000. That is a significant inheritance. You received the business, the house, the investment accounts. I did the math, Daniel. You got over $3 million. I got a fraction of that. Dad built that business over 40 years. He always planned to pass it to me. Why? Because you are the son? Because you are the man. Her voice had an edge now, the first glimpse of the anger I suspected had been building for decades. I worked for that company too. I gave up opportunities to stay close to home, to help Dad, to be there when he needed me. I am not saying you did not contribute, but the business was his to leave to whoever he wanted. Was it? She leaned forward, and I saw something change in her eyes. What if the will was based on a false premise? What if the person he thought was his son was not actually his biological child? There it was. The attack Richard had warned me about. What are you saying? I am saying that I have reason to believe you might not be Dad's biological son. I am saying that if that is true, the entire premise of the will collapses. That is absurd. Of course I am his son. Are you? How do you know? Because Mom and Dad told you? They also told us we were a happy family, and we both know that was not entirely true. What evidence do you have? She smiled, and in that smile I saw satisfaction. She thought she had me. She thought I was scared, defensive, vulnerable. She thought she was in control of this conversation. I have hired someone to look into it, a professional investigator. He is very thorough. She paused. I also found something in Dad's files. A letter he wrote to Mom years ago, asking questions about your paternity. Questions that were never answered. I knew she was lying. Richard had gone through every document in my father's files. There was no such letter. She was making things up, trying to rattle me, hoping I would panic and agree to a settlement. "You are bluffing," I said. "Am I? Are you willing to take that chance? A DNA test would settle everything. If you are so confident, why not agree to one? Because I should not have to prove I am my father's son. The burden is on you to prove otherwise." "Fair enough. But I am prepared to take this to court. I am prepared to spend whatever it takes to get the truth." She sat back, confident, certain that she had the upper hand. "Or we can settle this between ourselves. You agree to split the inheritance equally, and I drop the investigation. No lawyers, no courts, no public spectacle." "That sounds like blackmail." "It sounds like a fair compromise, unless you have something to hide." I watched her face as she delivered this ultimatum. She was completely calm, completely confident. She believed she had the power here. She believed that her lies and her investigator and her threats would be enough to take what she wanted. She had no idea that the ground was about to collapse beneath her. I looked at her across the table, this woman I had called sister for 37 years. I thought about all the time she had smiled at me, hugged me, told me she loved me. I wondered if any of it had been real, or if she had always been calculating, always been waiting for the moment when she could take what she believed she deserved. I thought about my father watching us grow up together, knowing that one of us was not his biological child. He had treated us with equal love, given us equal opportunities, tried to create a family that was whole despite the secret at its heart. And now that family was falling apart. Not because of his secret, but because of Jennifer's greed. I reached into my jacket and pulled out the folder Richard had given me. "I am not going to agree to your terms," I said. "And I am not going to let you drag our family through court with lies and fabricated evidence." "Daniel, I am not lying. I have real concerns about—" "You have concerns because you are jealous. You have always been jealous. And you have decided that the only way to get what you want is to destroy my reputation and steal my inheritance." I opened the folder. "But you made a mistake. You assumed that you were the only one with secrets." I spread the documents across her dining room table. The birth certificate from Vermont, the medical records, the DNA test results. "What is this?" she asked, her voice suddenly uncertain. "This is the truth. The truth that Dad knew for 30 years and kept secret to protect you." She picked up the birth certificate. I watched her face as she read it, as she recognized the name of the woman listed as the biological mother, as she realized that the name did not match our mother's. "This is fake," she said. "This is some kind of trick." "It is not a trick. Dad hired an investigator when you were 7 years old. He found out that Mom had a miscarriage while she was pregnant with you. She went to Vermont to recover, and while she was there, she arranged a private adoption. An illegal adoption. You were never her biological child." "That is impossible. I remember. I have photos." You have photos of a baby that everyone assumed was the child Mom had been carrying. But you were not." I pointed to the DNA results. "Dad ordered these tests in 2009. You share no genetic material with him or with Mom. You are not a Harrison by blood." Jennifer was shaking. Her face had gone pale. The confidence she had displayed moments earlier had evaporated completely. "He knew," she whispered. "Dad knew this whole time?" "He knew. And he chose to protect you. He raised you as his daughter anyway. He loved you anyway. He left you $200,000 in his will anyway." I paused. "And this is how you repay him? By trying to steal from his biological son. By trying to destroy the family he spent his life building." I did not know. I swear, Daniel, I did not know. Maybe you did not. Or maybe you suspected and decided to attack me before anyone could discover the truth about you. I gathered the documents and put them back in the folder. "Either way, your investigation is over. Your challenge to the will is over. If you try to take this to court, I will present this evidence, and you will lose everything. Not just the inheritance. Your reputation. Your place in this family. Everything." She was crying now, tears streaming down her face, the performance of the perfect sister finally cracking. I watched her break down, watched the careful facade she had maintained for 37 years crumble in real time. Part of me felt satisfaction. She had tried to destroy me, and now she was the one being destroyed. There was a poetic justice in that, a symmetry that appealed to some dark part of my nature. But another part of me felt something else, something closer to pity. This woman had just learned that her entire identity was a lie, that her parents were not her parents, that the family she thought she belonged to had been lying to her since the day she was born. No matter what she had done to me, that was a terrible thing to discover. "What are you going to do?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "I am going to do what Dad would have wanted. I am going to keep this secret the way he kept it for 30 years. I am going to let you remain Jennifer Harrison, daughter of Robert and Elizabeth Harrison, sister of Daniel Harrison. No one else ever needs to know. And the inheritance? You keep what Dad left you, $200,000. The amount he decided you deserved." I stood up. "But you never challenged the will again. You never hire investigators again. You never try to take what is not yours again. And you spend the rest of your life being grateful that your brother is more merciful than you deserve." She looked up at me, her face streaked with tears, her eyes red and swollen. "Why? Why would you keep my secret after what I tried to do?" It was a fair question. I had asked myself the same thing on the drive from Richard's office. Why not expose her? Why not let everyone know what she had tried to do and who she really was? "Because Dad kept your secret for 30 years, I said. "He could have destroyed you at any time. He could have told you the truth when you were 7 or 17 or 27. But he did not. He chose to love you anyway. He chose to be your father anyway." I paused, looking at her one last time. "I am not as good a man as he was, but I am going to try to honor his memory. He wanted you to be part of this family, and you will be, but on my terms now, not yours." I walked out of her house and did not look back. I could hear her crying as I closed the door behind me. Part of me wanted to go back, to comfort her, to tell her that everything would be okay. But I could not. Not after what she had tried to do. Not after she had been willing to destroy me for money she did not even need. The night air was cool on my face as I walked to my car. I stood there for a moment, looking back at her house, at the warm lights spilling from the windows, at the perfect life she had built on a foundation of lies she did not even know existed. I thought about my father, about the choice he had made 30 years ago. He could have rejected Jennifer when he learned the truth. He could have confronted my mother publicly, demanded a divorce, exposed the illegal adoption that had brought Jennifer into our family. Instead, he chose silence. He chose to protect a child who was not his, to raise her with the same love he would have given his own daughter, to give her every advantage he could provide. And she had repaid that love by trying to steal from his biological son. But even as I felt the anger, I also felt something else. I felt the weight of what I had just done. I had shattered Jennifer's understanding of herself. I had destroyed the identity she had built over 37 years. I had taken away her sense of belonging to the only family she had ever known. Was that justice? Or was it cruelty? I did not have an answer. Maybe there was no answer. Maybe some situations are so complicated, so layered with history and emotion and conflicting loyalties, that there is no clean resolution. My father had faced a similar question 30 years ago. He had discovered that his wife had lied to him, that the child he was raising was not his biological daughter. He had every right to be angry, to feel betrayed, to demand consequences. Instead, he had chosen forgiveness. He had chosen to protect the innocent child caught in the middle of adult deceptions. He had chosen to be Jennifer's father, not because biology demanded it, but because love did. I was not sure I was capable of that kind of forgiveness. Not yet. The wound was too fresh, the betrayal too raw. But I could try to follow his example. I could try to protect the family he had spent his life building. That meant keeping Jennifer's secret. That meant letting her remain a Harrison, even though she had tried to prove I was not one. That meant choosing reconciliation over revenge, even when revenge would have been so much easier. I started the car and pulled out of her driveway. The road home was dark and quiet, the kind of emptiness that makes you feel like you are the only person in the world. I thought about what Richard had said, about my father anticipating this moment, preparing for it, leaving behind the evidence I would need to defend myself. He had known his daughter, had loved her despite her flaws, had understood that her jealousy might someday lead her to do something destructive. But he had also hoped. He had hoped that it would never come to this. He had hoped that the family he had built on love and secrecy would survive intact. That hope had failed. But maybe something could be salvaged from the wreckage. Maybe Jennifer and I could find a way forward, a way to be family despite everything we now knew. It would not be easy. It might not even be possible. But I owed it to my father to try. He had spent 30 years trying to hold this family together. The least I could do was continue his work. The drive home was long and quiet. I thought about my father, about the secret he had carried for 30 years. He had discovered that the child he was raising was not his, and he had chosen to love her anyway. He had protected her, provided for her, kept her secret even from herself. That was the kind of man he was. Generous, forgiving, willing to overlook the circumstances of someone's birth in favor of the relationship they had built together. Jennifer had not inherited that generosity. She had looked at the disparity in the will and seen only injustice. She had decided that she deserved more, and she had been willing to destroy her brother to get it. But in the end, the truth had protected me. My father's careful documentation, his foresight in giving Richard those files, his understanding that someday someone might challenge the legitimacy of his family. He had known Jennifer. He had loved her, but he had also known her. And he had made sure that his biological son would have the evidence needed to defend himself. I spent the next few days processing what had happened. I called Richard and thanked him for the warning. I met with a therapist to talk through the complicated emotions of discovering that my sister was not my sister, that my family was not what I had believed. Dr. Catherine Shaw specialized in family trauma and identity issues. She had worked with adoptees, with people who discovered late in life that their parents were not their biological parents, with families torn apart by secrets and lies. "This is a lot to process," she said during our first session. "You have discovered 3 major truths in the span of a single evening. Your sister is adopted. Your mother lied about the adoption for over 30 years. Your father knew and kept the secret. And my sister was willing to destroy me for money. Yes, that too." She paused. "Which of these feels most important to you right now?" I thought about it for a long moment. The betrayal. Jennifer tried to take everything from me. She hired an investigator. She spread lies about my mother. She was willing to put me through years of legal battles just to get more money, even though she did not know the truth about her own origins. That makes it worse, not better. She was attacking me based on nothing. She had no evidence, no reason to believe I was not my father's son. She just assumed she could manufacture enough doubt to win. What does that tell you about her? That she never really loved me, that our whole relationship was a performance, that she was jealous of me for 30 years and finally saw an opportunity to act on it. Or, Dr. Shaw said carefully, it tells you that she was desperate, that she felt excluded, diminished, less valued by your father, that she made a terrible decision based on feelings she could not fully understand. Are you defending her? I am trying to help you understand her. Understanding is not the same as forgiveness, but it might help you process what happened. I thought about what she said for a long time, about Jennifer growing up feeling like she did not quite belong, about the subtle differences in how my father treated us, differences I had always attributed to personality but which might have had a deeper cause. He knew she was not his biological daughter. He loved her anyway, but did that love feel different to her? Did she sense, on some unconscious level, that there was something missing in his affection? "How do you feel about Jennifer now?" the therapist asked during our 3rd session. "I do not know. Part of me is angry. She was willing to destroy me for money. She was willing to lie, to fabricate evidence, to drag our family through court. And the other part? The other part feels sorry for her. She has been living with this insecurity her whole life, even if she did not know the source of it. She always felt like she was on the outside, like she had to compete for attention and love. Maybe on some level she sensed that something was different about her place in the family. Does that excuse what she tried to do? No, but it helps me understand it. I did not speak to Jennifer for 3 months after that dinner. She sent emails, left voicemails, tried to apologize and explain. I was not ready to hear any of it. Eventually, I agreed to meet her for coffee. She looked different, smaller somehow, as if the weight of the secret she now carried had diminished her. The coffee shop was neutral ground, a place we had never been together, a place with no memories attached. She was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table, her hands wrapped around a cup she had not touched. I sat down across from her. Neither of us spoke for a long moment. "I am sorry," she said finally. "I know that does not mean much after what I tried to do. But I am sorry." "Why did you do it?" "The real reason." She was quiet for a long time, staring at her untouched coffee. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "I have always felt like I did not belong, like no matter how hard I tried, I was never quite good enough. Mom and Dad loved you in a way they never loved me. I could feel it, even as a child. They loved you. Dad left you $200,000. And he left you $3 million. Do you understand what that felt like? To see, in black and white, exactly how much more he valued you. It was not about value. It was about the business. He built it for his son to inherit. Exactly, his son. Not his daughter. Not me." She shook her head. "I told myself the money did not matter, that I had my own success, my own career, my own life. But it did matter. When I read that will, when I saw the numbers, something broke inside me. So you hired an investigator to destroy me." "I was not trying to destroy you. I was trying to find a reason, any reason why the will was wrong. Why I deserved more than he gave me." She looked up at me, her eyes raw with shame. "I convinced myself that if I could prove you were not really his son, then it would justify what I was doing. It would mean the will was built on a lie. The only lie was the one you were telling yourself. I know that now." She paused. "But I also know something else now. I know why I always felt like an outsider. Why his love for me always felt different than his love for you. Why I spent my whole life trying to earn something that came naturally to you. And now that you know the truth, now I understand why I felt that way. I was not their biological child. I was a replacement for the baby they lost." Her voice cracked. "I was not even supposed to exist. That is not true. Mom chose you. She wanted you so badly that she broke the law to bring you home. Dad found out the truth and decided to keep you anyway. They both loved you, Jennifer. The fact that you were not their biological child does not change that. Does it not? Then why did Dad leave you so much more? Because the business was always meant to pass to his son. That was his plan from the beginning, before you were even born. It had nothing to do with loving you less." She considered that for a moment. I could see her struggling with it, trying to reconcile the story she had told herself with the reality I was describing. "I wish I could believe that," she said quietly. "You can believe whatever you want. But I know what I saw in those files. Dad kept your secret for 30 years. He could have told you the truth at any time. He could have treated you differently. But he did not. He raised you as his daughter right until the end. That is love, Jennifer. That is the most profound kind of love there is." We sat in silence for a while, two people who had been siblings and were now something else. Something more complicated, more fragile, more uncertain. "What happens now?" she asked. "I do not know. I meant what I said. I will keep the secret. No one else needs to know. And us? Are we still family?" I thought about my father, about the choice he had made 30 years ago, to love a child who was not his, to protect her from a truth that would have shattered her world. "We are still family," I said finally. "But it is going to take time. You tried to destroy me. You cannot expect me to forget that overnight. I understand. But I am willing to try, for Dad's sake if nothing else. He wanted us to be a family. He spent his whole life trying to make that happen. I am not going to throw that away. She reached across the table and touched my hand. It was the first genuine gesture she had made in months, maybe years. The first moment that felt real instead of performed. "Thank you," she said. "Do not thank me yet. We have a long way to go." That was 6 months ago. Jennifer and I see each other occasionally now. Holidays, birthdays, the obligations of family life. It is awkward sometimes. Stilted. Two people trying to rebuild a relationship that was damaged more deeply than either of us fully understood. The first time we saw each other after the coffee meeting was at Thanksgiving. She came to my house with Michael and the children, carrying a pie she had baked herself. It was my mother's recipe, the same pie we had eaten every Thanksgiving for as long as I could remember. "I thought you might like this," she said, handing it to me at the door. Her eyes were uncertain, searching my face for signs of welcome or rejection. "Thank you," I said. "Come in." The dinner was quiet at first. The children chattered about school and friends, oblivious to the tension between the adults. Michael tried to make conversation about sports and weather, the safe topics that fill awkward silences. But as the evening went on, something shifted. Jennifer helped me clear the dishes, and we stood side by side at the sink, washing and drying the way we had when we were children helping our mother after holiday meals. "I am sorry," she said quietly. "I know I keep saying it, but I am sorry. I know. Do you think we will ever get past this?" I looked at her, this woman who was not my biological sister, but who had been my sister in every other way for 37 years. We had shared a childhood, shared parents, shared memories that could not be erased even by the revelations of the past year. "I do not know," I said honestly, "but I hope so." She nodded, and I saw tears forming in her eyes. "That is more than I deserve. Maybe. But it is what Dad would have wanted." We finished the dishes in silence. But it was a different kind of silence than before. Not hostile, not awkward, just quiet. The silence of two people who have said what needs to be said and are now waiting to see what comes next. We are trying. That is what matters. We are trying to be the family my father wanted us to be. I think about him often. About the secret he carried. About the choices he made. He could have rejected Jennifer when he learned the truth. He could have confronted my mother, demanded a divorce, exposed the lie that had been built into the foundation of our family. Instead, he chose love. He chose to raise a child who was not his, to protect her from a truth that would have destroyed her sense of self, to give her everything he would have given his biological daughter. That is what family means. Not blood, not genetics, not the circumstances of someone's birth. Family is a choice, made every day, to love someone despite knowing everything about them. My father made that choice for 30 years. I am trying to make it now. The inheritance is settled. The business is mine the way my father always intended. I run it the way he would have wanted, with the same values, the same commitment to quality, the same dedication to the employees who have been with us for decades. I promoted 2 people last month, both of whom had worked for my father for over 20 years. They told me stories about him, about his kindness, his fairness, his insistence on doing things the right way even when the easy way would have been more profitable. "Your father was a good man," one of them said. "He treated everyone with respect. Never looked down on anyone, no matter their position." I thought about Jennifer when he said that, about my father treating her with love and respect even though he knew she was not his biological daughter. About the choice he made every single day to be her father, to give her the same opportunities he gave me, to never let the secret of her origins affect how he treated her. He was a good man, better than I realized when he was alive. Sometimes I sit in his office at his desk, and I think about the conversations we never had. I wish I had known about Jennifer while he was alive. I wish I could have asked him why he kept the secret, how he felt about raising a child who was not his, whether he ever regretted the choice he made. But he did not want me to know. He wanted to protect Jennifer, even from me. He wanted the family to remain intact, the illusion preserved, the bonds unbroken. He almost succeeded. If Jennifer had not let her jealousy drive her to that investigation, if she had accepted her portion of the inheritance with grace, the truth might have stayed buried forever. But secrets have a way of surfacing. The truth has a way of finding its way into the light, no matter how carefully it has been hidden. I learned that the night my lawyer texted me, the night I discovered that my sister was not my sister, the night my understanding of my family changed forever. The truth can hurt. It can shatter illusions, destroy relationships, force us to confront realities we would rather avoid. But it can also heal, can explain mysteries that have haunted us for years. It can help us understand why things felt wrong, why relationships were strained, why we never quite fit into the roles we were expected to play. Jennifer understands now why she always felt like an outsider. I understand now why my father treated us differently, why his love for me had a different quality than his love for her. We both understand that our father was a better man than either of us realized. A man who discovered a terrible betrayal and responded with grace. A man who chose love over anger, family over justice, forgiveness over revenge. I am trying to be like him. I am trying to forgive Jennifer for what she tried to do. I am trying to rebuild a relationship with a woman who is not my biological sister but who is still, in every way that matters, part of my family. It is not easy. Some days I am still angry. Some days I wonder if she has really changed, or if she is just biding her time, waiting for another opportunity. But I keep trying, because that is what my father would have wanted, because that is what family means. Not perfection, not trust without question, just the willingness to keep trying, even when it hurts, even when it would be easier to walk away. My father tried for 30 years. I can try for the rest of my life. Last week, Jennifer called me to ask for advice. Her daughter, my niece, had been having trouble at school. Jennifer did not know how to handle it, did not know whether to intervene or let her daughter work it out on her own. We talked for an hour. I gave her my thoughts, shared some experiences from my own childhood, suggested some books she might find helpful. It was the longest conversation we had had since the night I confronted her with the truth. When we hung up, she said something that surprised me. "Thank you for being my brother," she said. "Even after everything. Thank you for still being here." I did not know what to say, so I just said, "That is what family does." And I meant it. Despite everything, despite the betrayal and the lies and the pain, she is still my family. Not by blood, but by choice. By the choice my father made 30 years ago, and by the choice I am making now. That is what I carry with me. That is what I have learned from all of this. Family is not something you are born into. It is something you build, day by day, choice by choice. It is the decision to love someone even when they hurt you. It is the willingness to forgive even when forgiveness feels impossible. My father understood that. He lived it for 30 years. I am trying to live it now. Thank you for walking this journey with me. Before you go, I have left 2 more stories here on your screen. Both from men who discovered that family is not always who you are born to. It is who stands by you when the truth comes out. Click on whichever one calls to you. And if you want to join our community of people who understand what it is like to be the outsider looking in, that notification bell is your invitation. Until tomorrow, remember, your story matters, even if they tried to erase it.